All right, today we're going to dive into a feeling that I'm willing to bet almost everyone has felt but maybe couldn't put a name to. It's that frustrating sense that your own mind just can't keep up with itself.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You're about to say something genius. It is right there. And then, poof, it's just gone. Completely vanished into thin air. It is absolutely maddening.
Or maybe it's this feeling, that slow, grinding, unmistakable lag. It honestly feels like the whole world is on super fast fiber, and you're stuck listening to that ancient, screeching sound of a dial-up modem. You know the data is in there somewhere, but getting to it is just painfully slow. Well, that whole collection of frustrating feelings, it isn't just you having an off day. It's actually a specific phenomenon, and we're going to give it a name. Let's call it a crisis of speed. This is what we mean by a latency crisis. And the key idea here, this is really important, is that it's not about a lack of good ideas. You've got those. The problem is the lag, the delay between having those brilliant high bandwidth thoughts and your brain's ability to actually process and deliver them. Just understanding that simple fact can change everything. So, if the problem isn't the quality of our ideas, then where is the breakdown actually happening? Well, to find the source of this lag, we have to zoom in. I mean way, way in, down to the microscopic level. We have to talk about the synaptic bottleneck. And before we go any further, I need you to let this sink in. This feeling of slowness, this latency, it has absolutely nothing to do with your intelligence. It's not a character flaw. It's not a lack of focus. It's a mechanical issue. You know, we like to think of our thoughts as these magical, instant things that just appear, but they're not. They're very real, physical processes. Every single thought you have is an electrochemical signal that has to physically travel through the incredibly complex wiring of your brain. And just like any signal traveling down a wire, it can run into delays. So where does the delay happen? It happens right here, at the synapse. This is the tiny, tiny gap between your brain cells. Think of it like a little relay station that has to pass the message from one neuron to the next. And it's in this micro gap that the signal can get weak, slow, or bogged down. This is the bottleneck. So what does a slow, compromised signal actually feel like in real life? Well, it feels like this. It's that classic brain fog where nothing seems clear. It's that feeling that you've lost your mental snap, that quickness. It's that awful, crushing sensation that you just can't keep up. Your brain is coming up with great stuff, but the delivery system just keeps failing you. Okay, so now that we get the mechanics of it, let's reframe this whole experience with a much more powerful metaphor. I really want you to take that in for a second. This is not about you being a broken down, clunky engine. No way. You are a high-performance, top-of-the-line machine. The only problem is a tiny lag in the spark plug, a delay in the ignition. All the power's there, it's just not firing at the exact right moment. And this visualizes the core of frustration perfectly. Over on one side, you've got your potential. High bandwidth input, brilliant concepts, you're a high-performance engine. But your reality, what you're actually experiencing, is on the other side. Slow motion output, laggy delivery, a delayed ignition. That gap between who you are and what you can produce is where all the frustration lives. Now, that gap doesn't just create frustration. It also creates a very real drain on your mental resources. It creates something we can call friction. And that's what systemic friction is. It's the sheer effort, the mental energy you burn just by trying to force those big, high-bandwidth ideas through that slow, narrow bottleneck. It is absolutely exhausting, and it can drain your battery before you even get a chance to do the real work. And the end result of living with that friction day after day, it can be this profound sense of being trapped. And what a powerful way to describe it, a prisoner of your own slow-motion thoughts. You can see what you need to do, you have the ideas, but you feel like you're stuck behind bars, watching the world move by in real time. So let's bring this all home. After looking at the bottleneck, the engine metaphor, the friction, what is the single most important thing to take away from all of this? It's this. And please, hold on to this idea, especially on those tough, dial-up brain kind of days. You are not broken. You are not failing. You aren't losing your mind. You are simply losing signal speed. That's it. It's a technical problem, not a personal failing. And that shift in perspective changes the entire game, from self-blame to problem-solving. So here's what to remember. 1, the problem is physical. Down in the synapses, it's not a character flaw. 2, The issue is about the speed of transmission, not the quality of your intelligence. And 3, you're a powerful system that just happens to have a specific bottleneck.
Just understanding this is the first most critical step, because when you see it as a mechanical bottleneck, you're no longer the victim. You become the engineer. The question is no longer what's wrong with me. The question becomes, okay, how do I optimize my signal? This isn't about just trying harder. It's about working smarter, improving that transmission, and finally unlocking the true speed of that high-performance engine.
Let's dive into that super frustrating feeling. You know the one, when your brain just feels like it can't keep up, that cognitive lag. Well, it turns out it's not just you having a bad day. In this explainer, we're going to pop the hood and find out the real reason your thoughts feel like they're stuck in slow motion.
I mean, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You've got this brilliant idea. It's right there on the tip of your tongue, and then poof, it's just gone. Or maybe your mind just feels foggy, kind of unresponsive, and just painfully slow. That's not just a mood, that's a signal. It's a sign that something in your system is creating some serious friction.
Okay, so first things first, let's get one thing totally straight. That feeling of being stuck in some kind of mental slow motion, it is not just in your head. It's a real, physical experience that's happening in your brain's actual wiring. And this is absolutely crucial to understand. The problem isn't a lack of intelligence. It's not that you're out of great ideas. The problem is one of transmission. You can think of it like having a super high-performance engine, but there's a delay in the ignition. All that power is there, ready to go, but it's just not firing on time.
And this quote just nails the emotional side of it, doesn't it? It's that crushing frustration of knowing what you're capable of, but you're being held back by a system that just refuses to cooperate. It literally feels like you're a prisoner in your own mind.
So where is this glitch actually happening? We're not just talking about some vague brain fog anymore. No, we can actually pinpoint the location of this bottleneck in our neural network. It has a name and an address.
The term for it is a latency crisis. See, your thoughts are basically electrochemical signals. They have to jump across these tiny little gaps between your brain cells, your neurons, and those gaps are called synapses. The crisis happens when the speed of that signal gets compromised, causing this massive system-wide slowdown.
Okay, but why is the signal slowing down? This brings us to the absolute core concept of this whole explainer, synaptic resistance. You can think of it as friction in your brain's wiring. It's the force that's actively working against your mind's natural speed. Now, to really get this, let's think of your brain as a big electrical system. You need two main things for it to work well: good wiring and a strong signal. So as you can see here, the wire is your neural pathway, and it's protected by this fatty insulation called myelin. Then you have the signal itself, which is carried by chemicals we call neurotransmitters. The quality of both of these things, together, determines your mental speed.
So what's causing this whole system to break down? Well, the villain of our story is something called systemic interference. These are all the stressors, both inside and out, that literally wear down your brain's wiring and weaken its signal over time.
And this interference isn't some abstract thing. It comes from really common sources. We're talking about poor nutrition, chronic low-grade inflammation, that constant noise from digital overstimulation. All of this stuff degrades that myelin insulation, kind of like a wire's coating fraying over years of use. At the same time, metabolic waste can build up in those synapses, clogging the pathway and making it so much harder for the signal to get through.
And here's the really cruel twist in all of this. If you happen to have a highly complex, deeply interconnected mind, this systemic interference is even more catastrophic. Your greatest asset, all those amazing neural connections, suddenly becomes your greatest liability, because every single connection is another potential point of failure.
The end result of all this degradation is something we can call processing paralysis. The effort it takes just to move a thought from point A to point B becomes so massive that your system pretty much gives up. Thinking itself becomes this exhausting, draining chore.
So, what do we usually do when we feel this way? Most of us have been told the same thing our whole lives. Just focus, try harder, push through it. But this advice completely misses the biological reality of the situation. And as we're about to see, it actually makes everything worse. This metaphor just explains it perfectly. Pushing harder is like trying to force a brand new, high-definition 4K video stream through an old, rusty, damaged copper wire.
it doesn't make the picture any clearer, does it? No, it just creates more heat, more friction, and more exhaustion until the whole system just burns out.
Look, here's the bottom line. The whole try harder trap treats a biological system problem like it's some kind of personal or moral failing. But the real solution has nothing to do with willpower. It's about system maintenance. It's about actually addressing the biological root cause by improving the quality of your brain's wiring and its signal.
And this brings us to what might be the most empowering idea in this entire explainer. The path forward isn't about pushing yourself to your breaking point. It's about fundamentally shifting your approach from one of brute force to one of careful maintenance.
Let me say that one more time, because this is everything. Stop trying to force a signal through a clogged, high-resistance system. Instead, focus your energy on cleaning that system. The whole goal is to improve the biological environment of your brain to reduce that interference and restore your natural processing speed.
So I'll just leave you with this to think about. Your mind is a high-performance engine. It's capable of absolutely incredible things. But seriously, when was the last time you actually stopped to check the wiring and the ignition system? The key to unlocking your real potential might just be hidden in the answer to that question.
Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're diving into a new way of thinking about your own mind. Not as some dusty library of facts, but as a high-speed data network. We're going to explore how you can physically upgrade its wiring for faster, more insightful thinking.
Okay, let's start with a feeling I bet we've all had. That moment where a brilliant idea is right there. You can almost taste it, and then poof, it's just gone. Or maybe you've had one of those days where your thoughts just feel laggy and slow, like you're running on dial-up in a fiber optic world.
Well, it turns out this isn't just you being forgetful. The idea here is that this is a hardware problem. It's a latency crisis. The core issue isn't that you're losing your mind, it's that you're losing your signal speed.
So let's get right to the root of the problem. It's not about what you're thinking, but about the very wiring that carries the thought.
You know, it's so easy to blame ourselves, right? We think, oh, I'm just not focused or I'm not trying hard enough. But the real culprit here isn't a lack of effort. It's a physical bottleneck. It's actual systemic friction in the tiny gaps between your neurons that's slowing the whole show down.
And this is absolutely crucial to grasp. Your brain isn't some abstract cloud. It's a physical system. Your thoughts are real, electrochemical signals. And just like any network, its performance depends completely on the speed and the quality of its connections. A slow, compromised connection means the entire system lags.
All right, so to fix this bottleneck, we first have to understand the network's architecture. It's not about looking at neurons in isolation, it's about the whole system of connections.
The first key factor here is something called myelination. Now, the easiest way to think about this is as the quality of the insulation on your brain's wiring. Seriously, it's a fatty sheath that wraps around your neural pathways, and the thicker that insulation is, the faster and more efficiently the signal can zip along.
The second factor is synaptic plasticity. So if myelination is all about the speed of the wire itself, plasticity is about the strength of the connection point between the wires. It determines how reliably and efficiently that signal can make the jump from one neuron to the next.
So you've really got these two main levers for thought speed. Myelination is like upgrading your internet cable to fiber optic. It speeds up the signal along the wire. And synaptic plasticity? That's like getting a strong, clear cell tower signal. It strengthens the transfer between the wires. You absolutely need both for peak performance.
Okay, so if that's the architecture, how do we actually upgrade it? Well, this is the really cool part. The answer isn't about cramming more information into your head. It's about reducing the electrical resistance in the network you already have. So how do we do it? Through practice. But this is not just some abstract concept. Every single time you practice a skill, you are physically thickening the insulation, that myelin sheath on those specific neural pathways. You are literally building a faster, more efficient highway for your thoughts.
And the result of all this is a fundamental increase in your brain's bandwidth for that specific topic. Thoughts that once required a ton of conscious effort now just flow. They become automatic, which frees up your mental energy for even deeper insights.
So what does this optimized system actually feel like in practice? Well, this leads us to the archetype of what this kind of high-speed thinking unlocks: the pattern weaver.
A pattern weaver is someone who makes these incredible, nonlinear leaps of insight. And it's not magic, it's speed. Because their internal signal is so fast, a connection between two seemingly unrelated ideas can spark in an instant, before that impulse would just die out in a slower brain. This is all about improving your brain's signal-to-noise ratio.
By strengthening these specific pathways, you're essentially cutting through all the static, all the noise, allowing your core insights to come through with crystal clarity.
So you're moving away from that frustrating, stuttering performance of a crowded, noisy network where every thought feels like a battle against internal static.
And you're moving into this state of effortless precision. It's a feeling of pure flow and clarity, where your thoughts can finally keep pace with the world around you.
So, what is the single most important idea to take away from all of this? What's the new framework for thinking about, well, how we think?
The crucial point is this massive paradigm shift. Stop obsessing just over what you're thinking for a moment and start focusing on how fast your system can transmit that thought. If you optimize the transmission speed, the quality of your thinking will naturally follow.
And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Optimizing your brain's speed isn't just about thinking faster, it's about thinking differently. It's about unlocking brand new patterns and entirely new insights. So, what new worlds could that open up for you?
All right, let's dive right in. We're going to talk about upgrading your own mental bandwidth. We're going to break down why your brain sometimes feels like it's stuck in first gear, and more importantly, exactly how to fix it. Oh man, it's one of the most frustrating feelings imaginable, right? You have this amazing insight. It's crystal clear. It's right there on the tip of your tongue. And then, poof, it just evaporates. You're left grasping, wondering where that genius moment went. But here's a really powerful way to reframe that feeling. This isn't some personal failure. You're not losing your edge. Think of it like a mechanical problem. You have a powerful engine, but there's a tiny delay in the ignition. The power is there, it's just not firing instantly. So let's put a name to this feeling, shall we? In this first section, we're going to get right into that lag, that core problem that so many of us feel but can't quite put our finger on. It's called the latency crisis. And that dial-up analogy is perfect, isn't it? It's that buffering, unresponsive, slow-to-load feeling. You know the processing power is there, deep down, but the connection speed just feels totally shot. Okay, so now that we've named the problem, let's get into the why. Why does this happen? Section 2 is all about the biological root cause of this lag. It's something called the synaptic bottleneck. Let's see what's really happening inside your head. The whole issue boils down to this, the synapse. It's this microscopic gap where your thoughts, which are electrochemical signals, have to literally jump from one neuron to the next. If that jump is slow or inefficient, your entire system gets jammed up. That's the bottleneck. And the difference is just night and day. On one side, you've got that awesome mental snap, ideas flowing, connections firing instantly. But on the other, it's just brain fog. You feel like a prisoner trapped inside your own slow-motion thoughts. So how do we fix this? How do we clear that bottleneck? Well, the great news is there's a solution. And in this third section, we're going to lay out the transmission protocol. It's a clear, actionable plan to basically upgrade your own neural hardware. The real key here is a shift in mindset. We have to stop thinking of our brains as something that just works. We need to start actively maintaining them, just like you would with any other piece of high-performance equipment. And this right here is the core message. I want you to really let this sink in. You are not just a passenger. You are the engineer who can upgrade and optimize your own mind for speed and for clarity. You're in charge. Okay, so if you're the engineer, you're going to need a blueprint. In our fourth section, we're going to get super practical. What does this active system maintenance actually look like? Well, it's a simple 3-point upgrade. And here it is, the whole blueprint. It's not 100 different things. It really comes down to these 3 pillars. First, supporting the physical insulation of your brain's wiring. Second, training your focus. And third, cleaning out the whole system. Let's dig into each one. Let's start with a kind of wild number, 60%. Why is this so important? Well, because your brain is by dry weight 60% fat. And no, that's not a bad thing. In fact, it's absolutely essential for our very first step. And that brings us to step 1, myelin support. So that fat in your brain creates something called myelin. Think of it as the rubber insulation around an electrical wire. Without high-quality fats like omega-3s, that insulation starts to degrade. Your brain's signals literally start to leak out, and everything slows down. All right, step 2 is deep focus. Now, this is fascinating. Every single time you give in to a digital distraction, you are biologically thinning the myelin on your focus circuits. But the reverse is also true. When you do deep,
uninterrupted work, you are physically thickening those pathways, making them faster, stronger, and more efficient.
And that leads us perfectly into our third and final step, and it's all anchored by this number right here, 7 to 8 hours. You guessed it, we're talking about sleep. And this isn't just some nice-to-have suggestion for feeling rested, it is a non-negotiable part of your system's maintenance schedule. Here's exactly why that sleep is so critical. While you're in deep sleep, your brain activates this incredible cleaning crew called the glymphatic system. It literally flushes out all the metabolic junk that builds up during the day and clogs up your synapses. Skipping sleep isn't a badge of honor. It's like choosing to think through a swamp. So let's bring it all home. We've identified the problem, the lag, we've found the bottleneck, the synapse, and we've got the 3-part solution. Now it's time to step into your role as the engineer. And this is really the final call to action. You do not have to live with brain fog. You do not have to accept mental lag as your new normal. You have the tools right now to upgrade the entire circuit. So the only question left is, are you ready to make that shift? Are you ready to go from being a passive user of your mind to being its active engineer? If the answer is yes, then here is your very next step. Just comment bandwidth below, and we'll send you our detailed neural speed guide to get you started on this path. Because that's what this is all about in the end, right? It's about getting rid of that internal friction that holds you back, so you can finally operate in that beautiful state of effortless, high-speed flow.